Hello, my most amazing 3D artists. Today we get to have some fun putting things in our 3D boxes. So what you're going to need today is you're going to need your 3D boxes that you drew last week. You're also going to need some pictures to put in there. And so here are some options. The easiest option is to look through your junk mail and see if you can find some magazines or some ads where there are pictures of things that you might want to cut out and put into your boxes. So you should be looking for things that are interesting to you, things that really kind of show what you are into and things that you enjoy. Okay, so don't just cut out random things that don't really make sense for you. Cut out things that will be all about you. The other thing that makes this really fun is, and this is optional if you can make it happen, is if you can find some photos that your parents don't mind if you cut them out. You can use photos, and there's certain things that you need to keep in mind. And the other option is you could go or you could have someone take your photo, and I will show you how to pose for that in a way that will make it look really cool in your 3D box. And then you could print that out on your printer if you have one and cut that out. Now those are all optional. I know that you don't all have the printer or the means to do that, and so that's totally up to you. But I want to tell you a few tips about finding things in the junk mail, okay? So first of all, when you're looking through a magazine to figure out what you want to use, you need to think about size. It has to make sense in your boxes. If you cut out something that's too big and it doesn't fit in your box, then it won't make sense. It is okay if, some things are different sizes and you might have a really big picture of a candy bar and a really small picture of, like a chair or something. That's okay, but it does need to make sense in your box. So as I was looking through this catalog of lamps and different lights, I thought these ones were kind of too big. Like if I cut out this big yellow one here, it would be too tall. It wouldn't fit in my box. So size is something you need to think about. The other thing you should think about is, do you see the entire object? So if I was gonna, for example, use this lamp, even though it's too big, this would not be a good choice because in the picture here, you can't see the entire lamp. It's hiding behind this one. So you have to find something where you can see the entire object. So that is something to keep in mind. The other thing is that you don't want it to be too hard to cut out. So I was looking at like a few of these chandeliers, and some of these chandeliers just looked really tricky to cut out because there's all these teeny tiny little pieces. That would be too hard. So I would like to encourage you to find something easier to cut out, a good size, something that would be interesting to you, okay? And then I will talk to you about placement of those in just a minute. So I'm going to cut out a few things and then I'll show you how to put them on your picture. I'm going to fast forward through this part, but basically I want to just tell you that first of all, you should cut out the picture from the magazine so that it's easier to hold in your hand. So you should cut it, just do a rough cut first, and then cut very carefully and intricately. In other words, you cannot leave any of the background. That will be the difference between this turning into a successful project or it turning into something that is kind of a mess. You've got to make sure you can cut out the entire background. Okay, so here is a picture of my husband, and I thought this was a good one because he was sitting on the edge of a shelf, and I thought, oh, it'll look like he's sitting on the edge of my box. So this is how I would place this one. I wouldn't put him way back here because it would look like he was floating. I would want to make sure that he was sitting right there on the floor. So I could put him in this box, or I could put him in this box. If I put him down here, his legs would be hanging off the edge of the picture, which, you know, if that works for you, that's fine. But it might be something you would put up here. Now, that's why I'm going to show you that if you can take a picture of yourself or have someone take a picture of you, then I'm going to show you a video right now that shows how to pose for a picture like that. All right, check it out. Okay, so if you are going to take a photo at home that you're going to print out and put into your 3D boxes, then I'm going to give you a couple tips for how to take the best photo for this project. First of all, you're going to want to sit somewhere where you can bend your knees over the edge, because it'll look like your knees are being bent over the edge of the paper box. So, for example, you might want to hop up onto a countertop and turn your body a little bit to the side so that your knees are bent. And you also want to make sure that your feet are hanging freely. You don't want to have them sitting on anything. So you could just pose and then have somebody take the picture. Then when you're ready to print it out, you cut out everything in the background and just keep your body. So a couple options you might want to think about as you're posing for your picture is you might want to think about doing something a little bit silly, like pretending that you're pointing at something. Like if you point at something and go, then whatever you are pointing at, like in your picture, you can cut out something and put something interesting there. Or I've had kids before do something where they like hold out their hand, and then in the picture they cut out something interesting to put in their hand. Or another one is they like pretend they're looking down to the next box like this, or even pointing, and then you can put something interesting in the box underneath where you're sitting. So I printed off the picture that my daughter took of me, and I've got that right here. So now I'm going to cut myself out of this picture and make sure I get all the background cut off. Okay, there we go. So now I am going to put myself sitting right here. And the key is, if your knees are bending, to get those to bend right over the edge of that floor. Then, since I was holding out my hand, I thought it would be kind of fun to put something in my hand. And so I found this little picture of a glass of Coca-Cola. So I'm just gonna cut that out. And remember, the key to making this look correct is to make sure you cut off all the background. So I'll be gluing that down as I'm holding my Coca-Cola. All right, now I could cut out some other shapes. I could cut out this chair, I could cut out this lamp, and then we can add more things to the rooms. So this lamp would maybe be on the wall here, shining down onto my Coca-Cola. Okay, so here's a chair. Let's see. the chair would look good, like it's kind of sitting in the room. So if you're using a picture that's just kind of an object that can just be put in the room, remember if you put it up here, it's gonna look like it's floating. So it can't just be sitting on the dark background, unless it's something like a light here where it's supposed to be attached to the wall. If it's an object that needs to be sitting on the floor, then you need to put it like halfway between the floor and the back wall. So if you put it all on the floor, it looks a little silly, but if you put it kind of in between, that looks more natural. All right. So I'm going to put that chair there. I'm going to have my husband sitting there. I think I'll sit there and I'll start gluing these on. Now you might want to use a glue stick. If you use a glue stick, make sure you use a lot of glue because glue sticks don't always adhere very well, or they stick for a while and then they come off. If you want to use regular glue, liquid glue, that's when you got to make sure you don't use a ton of it because it'll squish out and make a big old mess. So I'm just putting a little bit on there and I'm making sure my knees are bending over that floor line, and then I'm going to glue the other objects on. I'm not requiring a certain amount of objects. Like if you just do one, that's okay. If you find a whole bunch of things you want to put in there, that's fine too. Just cut them out really carefully. Also, if you get a little too carried away, it might ruin the effect. So you might want to just kind of limit it to 3 or 4 objects and decide what looks good. All right, there's my 3D box project all finished up. I hope you have fun being creative with yours. Be on the lookout for all things BEAUtiful.